What is he so afraid of? Is it Doug? Is it Blaine? I know Scott Moe, Mr. Speaker. He's a really nice guy. Why doesn't the Prime Minister just meet with him?
Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Question Period Canada. You guys recognize Andrew Scheer from the introduction? Well, he's a wild one. He's from Saskatchewan. He's been in Parliament since 2004, one of the most experienced Conservative MPs currently in Parliament. He was only 25 when he started.
He also reminds me of Chucky, like with those dimples.
Cabinet positions in the Harper government. So let's take a look at this very interesting piece.
Oh, yeah.
Sit down.
Do you want to be the intro of the job already?
We're gonna let caucus come together today. We haven't been together for a while. We have a lot to discuss, a lot of things to talk about. We want to congratulate our new MPs. We've got dozens of new members of Parliament. We've grown our seat count in areas of the country that we've never won seats before, like Welland. We picked up seats in Kitchener. So there's a lot of optimism. We want to welcome our new colleagues, have some of these discussions, and I respect our caucus process so much, I'm not going to comment at all on what might happen in that regard.
Hey gang, what's up? Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. Is Parliament ever going to look different when it returns on May 26th? Andrew Scheer, that we just saw, like, before the Conservative caucus meeting where they were going to decide the next interim leader, is now going to announce he's the new interim leader.
I'll be taking over the parliamentary leadership duties of the caucus until Mr. Polyev rejoins us in the House.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
What do you think the role is of the opposition party in the trade war now that the election is over?
Well, we want a good deal for Canada. At the end of the day, we just need these tariff threats to stop. We need free trade with the United States back, and that's what all Canadians need, regardless of what line of work they're in or what sector they work in. Free trade is good for Canada. The Conservative Party is the party of free trade, so we need to put an end to these tariffs as quickly as possible, and so we're here to help in any way we can, and we'll see what the government brings forward in terms of legislation. I'm not going to speak to issues about the. I'll let our caucus chair speak to aspects about the Reform Act.
Mark Carney has asked for your support. Mark Carney has asked for the opposition support.
We want a good deal for Canada. We want these tariffs these tariffs need to stop. These threats of tariffs, the threats of annexation, all that needs to stop. And so we're going to do our very best as official opposition, hold the government to account, but to do what we can to help facilitate that. And we'll see what the government brings forward. So in the days and weeks ahead.
So I'm a big fan of Andrew Scheer. I find him very funny. Like, he's a very experienced politician. He's been in the game since 2004. We'll check that out. Let's look at some of his funniest stuff. He used to be Speaker of the House. How long ago was this? Like, the NDP was the official opposition? Jack Layton
I'd also
looking
like
sharp.
to remind the Conservatives that 60% of Canadians voted against this government.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Voted.
So this is another clip from the same video, like the very first time that Andrew Scheer was House Speaker. Pierre Poilievre is being questioned here. Like, let's check this out. It's interesting. It's a weird look because it's just been a long time.
The Honourable Member for Trinity Spadina.
In the 90s, the federal deficit was downloaded onto the backs of Canadian communities. 20 years later, Canadians are stuck in traffic, our bridges are crumbling, our water systems are failing. Friday Frome's speech ignored municipalities and infrastructure completely. Canadians deserve a vision, a national public transit strategy. Will this government act immediately with new funds to deal with the $123 billion infrastructure deficit?
Good question. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
I thank the Honourable Member for her question. She will recall that in 2007, We extended the gas tax fund by 4 years. In 2009, we doubled the gas tax fund. In 2010, despite economic challenges and despite efforts to keep costs down, we protected the gas tax fund. And in today's budget, she will have occasion to stand and join hands with our government as we move forward with an effort to make the gas tax fund permanent to help our communities right across this country. Thank you.
All right, gang, so now we're going to get into it. Vasi Capellos from CTV, one of these legacy media journalists, is trying to go one-on-one with Andrew Scheer, who's very sharp and funny. Let's watch him go.
Oh, yeah.
So much hardship for people, and we heard those stories across the country. People who are still living in their parents' basements because they can't afford to own a home. People have lost their jobs and their livelihoods because of liberal anti-energy and natural resource policies. And he's really inspired by those people who are counting on our party to deliver that real change. So we had incredible gains. He led our party to historic highs in every corner of the country, gained seats in every province. We're disappointed that we didn't form the government, but there's a lot to build from here. And Pierre's inspirational leadership got us here, and his continued leadership will be what delivers a victory next time.
Why did it fail to secure his own seat?
Well, look, I mean, even in his own seat, he saw an increase in votes for himself.
But he lost by 4,000 votes.
No, but when you look at the utter collapse of the NDP, I mean, I come from Saskatchewan, the birthplace of the CCF and Tommy Douglas and all the heroes on the radical left, and they came in third. Every election I've ever fought in since 2004, the NDP were in the low 30s, high 20s. Last time I checked in province-wide, they're 7.5%. So that is at play in a lot of areas. Some of the seats that we weren't successful in, we saw historic gains. We saw massive amounts of new voters. There's a story to be told there about all the new people that Pierre has attracted to our movement. I mean, people who say that some of the criticisms I just heard on the lead into the show, they're just not looking at the facts. The facts are more people voted for us than ever before. We got a higher percentage than ever in the modern Conservative history, and we picked up seats that we haven't held in some cases in 20 years. So did we do enough to win? Clearly, we have more work to do. There's another step to this journey, but there's an incredible base of support here that we could not have achieved without Pierre Poilievre's inspirational leadership.
I think you're pointing to comments from Premier Doug Ford in Ontario and Premier Tim Houston in Nova Scotia. And I take your point about all the gains, and I think that's a completely fair comment on what happened. But like you said, it wasn't enough to win. And the Liberals actually increased their share of the popular vote by more than yours did after a record that you've spent 2 years criticizing and gaining in popularity for criticizing. You still couldn't clinch a win after a 10-year record of the Liberal government that you have told Canadians repeatedly is terrible for them. Why is that not about more than just the NDP's failure? Why doesn't responsibility for that lie at Pierre Poilievre's feet?
Well, look, we're going to go through the process of finding out exactly what the campaign got right and what the campaign might have missed, or what the calibration that might need to be addressed going forward. But at the end of the day, when we look, there was a massive shift in the political landscape when Justin Trudeau stepped down, and quite frankly, we had a new Liberal leader that didn't get a lot of scrutiny from the media, didn't get a lot of the same tough questions that Conservatives tend to get, and immediately went into an election campaign. So it drastically shifted the landscape. Obviously, it's our job to win elections as political campaigners and as party systems. We don't do it for ourselves. We do it for those people. We do it for the people who are counting on us. And that's where our disappointment is today, is that there were so many people hoping for that real change. I mean, almost 42% of Canadians were hungry for something completely different. And now Mark Carney is going to go down and double down on all the same policies as Justin Trudeau. So clearly, it's tough after that. But let's not lose sight of the fact that we are in an incredibly stronger position, that we are so much closer than ever before. I think at least, 7.5% more than we got in the last election. Huge gains to build on here. New caucus members from areas that, by the way, are ground zero for being threatened by U.S. tariffs. I mean, we picked up seats in Windsor. We picked up seats in Hamilton. In my riding where we make steel, we held on to all those ridings. All the places in the country where people are directly affected by the threats of U.S. tariffs, forestry, mining, oil and gas, potash, manufacturing, steel, we won those voters. So what we need to do is we need to look at what is the next step? What is that gap to get the other few percentage points that we need to form government? And that's what we're going to be doing over the next days and weeks.
If I understand you right, though, you're saying it's the fault of, it's basically because of what happened to the NDP. It's the fault of the media. I mean, you have two conservative premiers, with respect, you have two conservative premiers saying it was the strategy employed, that essentially Tim Houston said the Conservatives are pushing more people away than pulling in. These are Conservatives. This isn't me just making it up.
It's just demonstrably false by the facts. I mean, the facts are it doesn't make sense.
Why didn't Pierre Poilievre talk to Tim Houston or talk to Doug Ford? Isn't that weird?
You can't
Here we go. They're starting to argue. That's a little more entertaining, right?
Simultaneously say we pushed people away when we got more votes. That's just factually incorrect. That doesn't work on a mathematical level. I don't know what else to say. I mean, we got more votes, we got a higher percentage, we won more seats. Clearly, we weren't pushing people away. We reached historic highs. That's just a nonsensical statement that doesn't hold up to a second's worth of scrutiny.
But it's coming from a person who clearly feels like there was no outreach to the people who supported him and to him himself, right?
So supported who?
Tim Houston.
I'm not sure I follow the question.
He's making that statement based on what he has observed and his own
People
experience,
weren't reaching out to him?
Well, he has said that there was no outreach, for example, from Pierre Poilievre to him.
So
has
his
Doug
feelings
Ford.
are hurt?
I don't know. I'm just conveying what he said, and I understand what you're saying, but I can't discount what two conservative premiers are saying. Like Doug Ford is the premier of the most populous province in the country. Like, does what he say not matter at all? Like, if he feels that no outreach was done to him or his supporters, isn't that something to just take stock of?
I just don't believe that's true. And again, we're in this not because we were worried about interpersonal relationships with someone like Doug Ford. We're worried about the people in Ontario who are affected by terrible Liberal policies. That's who we are listening to. That's who we're thinking about doing that outreach to and getting them on side and addressing their needs. And I'll point out, Pierre Poilievre got more votes in Ontario than Doug Ford did. Pierre Poilievre got a higher percentage of the vote than Doug Ford did.
Won a third majority.
More people
you have
in
lost
Ontario.
A fourth election.
More people in Ontario wanted Pierre Poilievre to be Prime Minister than wanted Doug Ford to be Premier. That is just the facts. So, do we have some work to do? Do we have to figure out next steps? Obviously, Vashi, we didn't win the election. That hurts, and it hurts for a lot of people who are counting on us, and that is who we are focused on right now. Those people who place their trust in us, the thousands of volunteers, the candidates who put their name on the ballot, the people who have lost their jobs and remortgaged their house to pay for bills. Those are the people that we need to talk to and show that we're still going to keep fighting for them, and that is what Pierre is doing. Ever since Pierre launched his leadership campaign, he has been consistent. He is fighting for those people who are left behind by Ottawa. When Ottawa caters to special interests, when the Liberal government rewards their friends and imposes a crazy ideology. I mean, Mark Carney has written a book extolling the virtues of the carbon tax. He said he's going to keep the carbon tax on the industrial side. That means job losses in places like Regina and Hamilton. So those are the people that Pierre is focused on. I wish Conservatives at other levels around the country would help, would be more cognizant of that it's about the people. It's about the people that they represent as premiers or as other politicians. It's not about settling interpersonal differences. I don't think Canadians care about that. I think Canadians are worried about how they're going to pay their mortgage, how they're going to move out of their home and start their parents' home and start a life for themselves.
But
and
Canadians
that's what we're going to be focused on.
For example, somebody who is running to represent all the things you just said, the interests of people who feel left behind. Don't they want to see that person working with other leaders and working towards better outcomes for everyone? You're dismissive of, for example, for the Premier's support in Ontario, he won a third majority mandate. You have failed to win a fourth time around.
As I said, there are dynamics that we have to figure out to make sure that doesn't happen again. But again, more people wanted Pierre Poilievre to be Prime Minister in Ontario than wanted Doug Ford to be Premier. That's just a fact.
But
I'll tell you what Pierre Poilievre didn't do.
I just feel like it sounds like you guys are in denial. denial that you lost. Like, I won, but I lost. Like, I don't understand.
Who's denying that?
No,
I'm just saying your prescription is to do something that Premier Ford seems to be asking for. I'm just pointing out that, well, for sure, we have to take a look and take stock and say, what do we need to do to win next time? I'm just pointing out that Pierre Poilievre is he's popular. He's more popular in Ontario than Doug Ford is, just based on the votes. Like, that's not a subjective opinion. If we just count ballots, that is just an objectively true statement.
Didn't the Liberals win the popular vote though in Ontario?
Federal, I'm just saying when you're talking about popularity, when you're talking about base of support, these are just facts. I'll tell you what Pierre Poilievre didn't do. Pierre Poilievre didn't endorse Bonnie Crombie. Pierre Poilievre didn't praise opponents of Premier Ford and the Ontario PC party. So, look, I think it's time. What I would say to everybody in Canada, every Conservative, every type of every level, we can all agree that Liberal policies will be bad for Canada. So let's work together. Let's work together. Let's stop this kind of thing, this kind of finger pointing. We will absolutely take a hard look at what decisions were made and why were they made and what data went into making those decisions. What do we need to do to be successful next time? And again, not because we want the blue team in and not because out of our party's sake, but I'll tell you, I knocked on doors in every corner of this country. The despair that people had if the Liberals got another term was real. I mean, we had people weeping, crying, telling us their stories at rallies and on the doorstep. People weren't just saying, we hope you win. They were saying, you gotta win. And that's what's disappointing today, knowing that we weren't successful. And that's what's gonna drive us to put aside all this back and forth with other Conservative politicians. That's what's going to drive Pierre to stay focused on those people and their stories and bring them hope again. So it's early days after the election. There's a lot of work for us to do, but I can tell you that Pierre is fighting and he's driven by that need to restore that hope for Canadians.
Does he feel a responsibility for letting those people down? I remember years ago speaking to you after your loss. You won the popular vote. You lost against a majority government, the Liberal government. You brought them still to a minority, though. He lost the popular vote and couldn't win after a decade of the Trudeau government and 2 minority governments. Like, why was it appropriate for you to step down in that instance, but not for him?
I mean, to compare these results to 2019, I don't even mind saying I was leader in 2019. Pierre was leader this time. Massive gains, actually.
But you won the popular vote.
This is we're in the early days after the election. There is no one that could have built up this team, this platform, other than Pierre. I mean, it's almost like everyone forgets that Justin Trudeau was a popular prime minister with a whole lot of support for his policies. And Pierre, through a systematic litigation of the damage that was doing to Canadians, forced a sitting prime minister who did not want to go to resign. Okay, that's no small accomplishment. So this idea that it was no big deal to go into an election with this kind of footing is just false. It took Pierre's vision. It took Pierre's leadership style to put us in the position that we were. We got 42% of the vote. That's more votes than.
But in January,
if I could just say, Pierre Poilievre got a higher percentage of the vote than Jean Chrétien ever got, than Paul Martin, than Stephen Harper, than Justin Trudeau. So we need to put this in perspective.
But they all won majority governments.
Yeah,
not Paul Martin, but the other ones.
Okay, but clearly, we need to think about a few things about how we fell short and why we fell. No one's here denying that. And my message to those 8 million plus, or around 8 million, I haven't done a recent check, but about 8 million people who voted Conservative hoping for that change. My message is, we get that there is disappointment. We get that we need to figure something else out to win next time. We're not taking that for granted. No one's saying here, that we don't have some work to do to figure that out. But there's an incredible base of support that only Pierre Poilievre could have done for our party, and he's the only person that can continue that and finish the job.
Will he run in a by-election? I mean, I know the government will call the by-election, but is it someone going to step aside in like a so-called safe seat? Like, has that decision been made?
Look, these are early days. It's 2 days after the election. It's something that we'll be addressing going forward. But I can tell you that Pierre is staying on. He's fighting. He's gonna work with our caucus. He's gonna work with our loyal volunteers and our activists to keep the momentum going. And I am very confident that as we get through the difficult days, the next days and weeks, as we figure some of these things out, we're going to come out the other side with a more united team, with a bigger team, with more representation from more provinces, and Pierre is the man to deliver that victory in the next election.
In the meantime, while he's not in the House, will you be leading the party in the House?
These are
Still not decided. Okay,
yeah.
had to check. Okay, Mr. Scheer, thanks for your time. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much.
Andrew Scheer is a re-elected MP and, of course, former leader of the Conservative Party.
Speaker, none of that is true. But what is true is that yesterday, in a historic vote, a majority of MPs demanded that the Prime Minister sit down and just listen to the premiers. It's baffling to understand why he's so afraid of meeting with them. It's not like they're going to ask him to put together IKEA furniture or help them move. They just want to put forward better ideas than hiking prices on everything. What is he so afraid of? Is it Doug? Is it Blaine? I know Scott Moe, Mr. Speaker. He's a really nice guy. Why doesn't the Prime Minister just meet with him?
Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Question Period Canada. You guys recognize Andrew Scheer from the introduction? Well, he's a wild one. He's from Saskatchewan. He's been in Parliament since 2004, one of the most experienced Conservative MPs currently in Parliament. He was only 25 when he started. He's held a number of positions, including Speaker of the House and many cabinet positions in the Harper government. So let's take a look at this very interesting piece that his people threw together about Trudeau and a new word they're trying to introduce to the Oxford English Language Dictionary because Trudeau is a fake and a phony. Let's take a look. It's a pretty fun piece, but we've got to get rid of this guy, Trudeau. We need an election to change things up, get things back on track. Let's take a peek at this piece that Andrew Scheer's people put together. It's a lot of fun. Let's take a peek.
You know, over the years, I've noticed something about Justin Trudeau and how he attacks his enemies. He accuses his political enemies of the very thing that he himself is guilty of. It's like if he stole a bag of apples, he'd stand up the next day and accuse his opponents of being an apple thief.
While the Conservative leader is muzzling his own caucus and putting himself first, we'll keep putting Canadians.
The Honourable. This one is just too easy. He walked into it. He had to muzzle a member from Newfoundland who called for an end to his leadership, joining another senator who did the same.
And I went through the entire Oxford English Dictionary looking for the right word that describes that. And there just is not a word in the entire English language that accurately reflects that. There are words like hypocrisy, projecting, gaslighting, lying. But what Trudeau does is more than that. In some ways, it's a blending of aspects of all those other words into one new word. So I'm going to petition the folks at the Oxford English Dictionary and try to get them to add a new word to the English language called Trudeauing. In the search through the English language, going back to Shakespeare and Chaucer, when you think about all the countries of the world that have added their own flavor to the English language, Canada, New Zealand, India, Australia, none of that has a word to accurately describe what Justin Trudeau does to his political enemies. And not in an abstract way. We're not talking about concepts here. We're talking about very real, tangible actions or words that Trudeau has done or said that he then flips around and tries to accuse his opponents. Let's start with the most obvious one. A friend of mine said to me one time, you know how you can tell when you've won an argument with a liberal? It's when they accuse you of being a racist. Justin Trudeau does that all the time. You know, I'm sure that he's called at least 10 people a racist before he has his breakfast. It's a standard liberal tactic. Lose an argument, accuse your opponent of being a racist. Now, of course, Justin Trudeau's done this on many occasions.
Souvent misogyne, souvent raciste aussi.
They claim to be tough on crime, but we're really just tough on Black Canadians and Indigenous people.
Angry mobs hurling racist epithets.
All that from a guy who wore racist costumes, dressed himself up in clothes and makeup, including his entire body, to make a mockery of Black people. He turns around and accuses other people of the very thing he himself is guilty of.
Because anti-Black racism
is happening here, everywhere in Canada, every single day.
Soleil and Solara, do you want to stand up and ask a question?
Why did you paint your face brown?
It was something I shouldn't have done because it hurt people. We all have to work together to make sure that it doesn't happen. Okay?
Another attack that Justin Trudeau loves to use is the issue with First Nations. He'll often accuse his opponents of not prioritizing or taking seriously a relationship with Indigenous communities.
These are the hard truths we must confront as a society.
And then what does he do after creating the first stat holiday for Truth and Reconciliation Day, a day where Canadians were encouraged to learn more about our First Peoples and to attend events to strengthen the relationship? What does Justin Trudeau do?
Trudeau's plane, a Royal Canadian Air Force Challenger, left the national capital at 7 a.m. Ottawa time. He was within a couple of 100 kilometers of Kamloops, but he flew right over. Trudeau and his wife are then seen hiking the beach near the $18 million oceanside home that they have rented. It's a home dubbed Surfer's Paradise.
This is a classic Trudeauism. In fact, after he got caught, his explanation was an even more important part of Trudeauing, where he says that it's a learning opportunity for everyone.
The first National Day of Truth and Reconciliation was a time for Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people alike to reflect and connect, think about the past, but also focus on the future.
Trying to bring every Canadian in with his guilty actions. He's the one that chose to go surfing on Truth and Reconciliation Day. He's the one that's living it up on a beach in BC on a day that was meant for Canadians to learn more about our Indigenous communities. And then he says that all Canadians can learn from this mistake? Classic Trudeauing. Another famous Trudeau attack is accusing his opponents of being anti-women, saying that they don't stand up for women's rights or they don't respect women.
First of all, I'm going to keep saying loud and clearly that I am a feminist until it is met with a shrug.
Don't forget the Jody Wilson-Raybould scandal, where she stood up to his attempts to politically interfere in a criminal court prosecution, and she got fired.
I experienced a consistent and sustained effort by many people within the government to secure a deferred prosecution agreement with SNC Lavalin. These events involved 11 people from the Prime Minister's office, the Privy Council office, and the Office of the Minister of Finance.
Expressing a lack of confidence in our government and in me personally as leader, it's become clear that Ms. Wilson-Raybould and Dr. Philpott can no longer remain part of our Liberal team.
Remember when he used to say, add women, change outcomes? Well, I guess when you remove women, you get the same old Liberals. It doesn't stop there. A former Liberal MP blew the whistle on how Justin Trudeau treated her, trying to bully her, yelling at her, berating her to the point that she couldn't serve in Parliament anymore.
I wanted him to know that, I was smart, I was strategic, and I didn't want to be a token in his government. Well, it's not that I felt tokenized, Andrew. There's evidence of that. In my role with the Prime Minister, the 3 international events that I attended were the state visit to Washington, in which I only met Obama. I had no other meetings or anything else to do during that whole time. The opening of the National African American Museum in Washington, again, no other meetings, and the inauguration of President Akufo-Addo in Ghana. All 3 of those international events had a very specific focus, and it was related to my Blackness. Well, the conversation was a courtesy call to tell him that I was no longer going to be running in the 2019 election. What I got was, Selena, I can't have you make this announcement today because Jody Wilson-Raybould resigned today, and I can't have 2 powerful women of color leave. He went on to talk about his privilege and how people keep talking about his privilege. He went on to say that I should appreciate him. I should appreciate what he's done for me in the time that I've been in government, as if I didn't work hard. And at the end of it, at the end of his rant, I said, who the fuck do you think you're talking to?
First of all, I'm going to keep saying loud and clearly that I am a feminist until it is met with a shrug.
Now, gaslighting is an important aspect of Trudeauing. It doesn't quite capture it enough, but it's a big part of it. Like, remember when Justin Trudeau brought in all kinds of laws and rules, forcing people to lose their jobs if they didn't want to take the COVID vaccine, if they wanted to make their own healthcare decision?
The mandatory vaccination that's in place immediately for federal employees will look like. Proof of vaccination will be required by no later than the end of this month for all federal employees. Mid-November, enforcement measures will make sure that everyone is vaccinated. People who choose not to get vaccinated don't get to get on a plane or a train, don't get to work in the public service, don't get to go to movie theaters or gyms or restaurants and other non-essential services. That's how we keep people safe.
Justin Trudeau made it so that you could literally lose your job. You couldn't get on an airplane. You couldn't get on a train. Members of our armed forces who had served their country with pride and honor were suddenly kicked out for wanting to make their own healthcare choices. And then what does Trudeau do? He goes on TV and says this.
And therefore, while not forcing anyone to get vaccinated, I chose to make sure that all the incentives were there.
Classic Trudeauing, taking gaslighting to a whole new level that it needs a new word. Another big example of Trudeauing that you'll see time and time again. In fact, you'll probably see more of it as we get closer and closer to the next election. And that is Justin Trudeau accusing his opponents of dividing Canadians.
It has always been easier to divide in politics than to bring people together. But it's really hard to govern responsibly once you've created wedges within the population, once you've turned people against one another and made them more fearful. The small fringe minority holding unacceptable views that they're expressing, expressed by a few people gathered in Ottawa right now, microchips about, God knows what else that go with the tinfoil hats.
This is the most divisive prime minister in Canadian history. He literally plays one province off against another, one region against another. He plays different ethnic community groups off against each other. He has one message for one group of Canadians and a completely different message for another. And how can we forget? Justin Trudeau made this outrageous accusation.
Conservative Party members can stand with people who wave swastikas. They can stand with people who wave the Confederate flag. We will choose to stand with Canadians who
accuse conservatives of standing with people who wave swastikas. And then, just a short time later, he allowed an actual Nazi to come and be recognized on the floor of the House of Commons during a state visit by Ukrainian President Zelensky. At a time when Russian propaganda was literally trying to define the conflict in Ukraine from their perspective as a war against Nazis, Justin Trudeau allowed one of the most embarrassing diplomatic incidents to happen in Canadian history.
I think it's going to be really important that all of us push back against Russian propaganda.
After accusing other MPs of standing with people who wave swastikas, this is the epitome of Trudeauing. Now, of course, there are components of Trudeauing that are similar to other words that exist in our language. For example, lying. Trudeau lies a lot. Hypocrisy. Too numerous to count. And gaslighting. Well, we all know examples of Justin Trudeau telling us that he never did things when we know he did. Now, I was thinking about this over the Christmas break. You see, sometimes dictionaries impose a definition and we can look it up and say, okay, that's what that word means. But over time, if people themselves start using a word or they've made up a word that catches on, the Oxford English Dictionary will incorporate that new word into language. That's something that's so neat about the evolution and the flow of English. I don't think the Oxford English Dictionary will add a new word just because I've shot this video and I send them a letter. But maybe if enough Canadians add their voice and say, yes, we've noticed this too, and we need a new word that really captures the new depths to which Justin Trudeau has sunk. Yes, he's hypocritical. Yes, he's told lies. Yes, he's engaged in corruption and scandals. And yes, he's gaslit Canadians. But what he does is so unique. It takes all of that together that we need a new word. So please take a few moments. and sign my petition. I'm hoping that if the good people at Clarendon Press in Oxford receive enough names from Canadians, that they'll add the word Trudeauing to the English language. And as always, thanks for watching.
Are you Trudeauing me right now? Andrew Scheer is a funny guy. Like, that's a pretty funny video, and it's a very funny petition. If you're interested in taking part in signing that, there's a link below. What are we going to do about Trudeau? He's got to go. Andrew Scheer seems to be doing his part. What are we going to do, guys? In the meantime, my name's Aaron. This is Question Period Canada. We watch the daily broadcasts of the question periods together in a live community with a great chat room. It's a lot of fun to get caught up on what is going on in our daily Canadian soap opera. So come and join one of the live shows. Like, subscribe, get notified, share, all that fun stuff. Have something healthy to eat, and come back and join us. Learn more about Canadian federal politics. Aaron, Question Period Canada. Catch the next video. Thank you for watching this one. Have something healthy to eat today and try to stay warm. All right, ciao.
WTF.
Here, here.